Folks, we're back. This is Steve Sassen, Jim Jones with Veterans in Politics. Today we have Shelley Berkley, former United States Congresswoman and mayoral candidate for the city of Las Vegas, and she's going to be discussing the current state that's in Israel today. But before we get to Ms. Berkley, Jim, you have any rants?
No, actually, I really don't have any rants. I just really, I'm really excited, and Shelley and I were talking a little bit before we started about how excited I am to have somebody that has more information than most people do, has been there on the ground and understands the situation. So I'm looking forward to actually hearing it, because there's a lot of disinformation out there, and I want to thank you very much for coming in, because not every mayor candidate would touch it. You know what I mean? They would just
I don't
be
think
like,
any other mayor candidate would know anything about it. So, but, because of my time in Congress, and also, obviously, I'm Jewish, I've been to Israel 18 times. My son was there for a year on a study program, and my son Max was bar mitzvahed in Israel. So we have close ties, and I've been there both as a private citizen and as a member of Congress. And I was part of a congressional delegation. We were the last civilian group out of the Gaza when Ariel Sharon, who was prime minister at the time, closed the Gaza and got all of the Israeli settlers out, forcibly removed them to turn the area back to the Palestinians. And that's when, of course, the Palestinian Authority had some tangential responsibility for the Gaza. And then Hamas came in and threw out the Palestinian Authority. And ever since that time, the Hamas has been in charge of the so-called government in Gaza. And so all of this that we are seeing today, and the deprivation and the problems the Palestinian people are having, and the shortages and the lack of jobs and the lack of everything else that any humanitarian would tell you people are entitled to, is because of Hamas.
Right. And now, one thing just real quick, sorry, Steve, because this is a subject I've been wanting to talk about.
You get Shelley's bio.
Oh dear, and we didn't do your rant, and you don't have a rant.
No, I don't have a rant. I just wanted to thank you. But the one thing about that frustrates me is I don't understand how the leader of Hamas lives in Qatar.
Yeah, lives in Qatar. And I guarantee he lives a far better life than the people in the Gaza do.
Yeah, he doesn't even have the guts to be on the ground with his own people.
No, he's living like a fabulously wealthy man. And the people that are working under him are the terrorists that are terrorizing the Gaza, and now Israel are living hand to mouth in a horrible situation. But he seems to be doing quite well.
Right. Okay, sorry about that.
Yes.
Is he here? Sorry, I'm in the game, Coach.
I'm sorry.
It's been a while. I keep forgetting the order.
He waylaid me. It's not my fault. It's his fault.
Oh, it's my fault.
Yeah, right.
Ms. Berkley, could you please give us a bio? And please don't leave anything out.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Yes. How far back do you want this to go, Steve?
From when you first entered politics.
Okay, I'll go even further, because I love this story about how my family got to Las Vegas. And you've heard it already, but I'll tell it again, because it's one of my favorites. My father was a waiter in upstate New York, and this was in the early 60s. And he was having a very hard time making a living. And so one night he put my sister and I and the dog in the back seat of our car, parents in the front seat. Everything we owned was in a U-Haul hooked up to the back bumper.
Did you wear a seatbelt?
Not in those days. No. Drove across country, middle of the summer, no air conditioning. My dad had a letter of introduction to get a job as a waiter in Southern California. Drove across country in the old Route 66. It's July. Do you know how miserable it is? And like everybody else that was immigrating from the East Coast to the West Coast in that era. We had a water bag in the front grill of the car because invariably your battery, your car heated up. So you had to go on the side of the road, put the water in, wait till it cooled down, and then keep going. It was a tough trip. My parents, who I thought were so old, they were 31 and 34 at the time. I was 12. My sister was 7. Dog, I can't remember.
I gotta stop you right there. What do you say about people that says about your age today and you being involved in politics? What do you say to them about that?
About what?
About you being too old.
Well, this is so great, Steve. I'm glad you brought that up. When I was first running for the Nevada State Assembly in 1982, I was 30 and pregnant with my son, Max. And I had Max at the end of May, and I won the election in November. Now, everybody was upset that I was running because I was too young and I needed to be home to take care of my child.
You can't win.
So, Max and I did quite well. Max, he's a lovely fellow. I took him up to Carson City with me. We went back and forth every weekend, and Max turned out great. I did a good job as an assemblywoman.
I love his demeanor.
He's a very sweet man. Yes, very sweet. I always tell people I have the distinction of having given birth to the nicest human being on the planet. He really is. Doesn't have a mean-spirited bone in his body. But enough of Max. Let me get back to Shelley. Right, enough of him. So my parents we got to Hoover Dam. There were signs that say Las Vegas 30 miles. They're probably still there. So my parents, again, who I thought were so old, they wanted to see Las Vegas. We never knew if we were coming back east again. This was a huge move. Everything we owned was in the U-Haul. So we decided we'll stop in Vegas for the night. We never left. And
did you get a flat tire or what?
No. This is so nutty. And we actually stayed in a motel right across the street from the Stratosphere, the Holiday Motel. It's still there. I think it's boarded up now, but it's still there. My God, it had a swimming pool. We were in luxury. So here we are. My parents, they fed us. We checked into the motel. It had, my God, when you're 12 and 7, which my sister and I were, it had that magic fingers, where you put the quarters into the machine and it vibrated the bed. And we had a remote control.
They don't have those anymore.
Yeah, no, I hope not. Oh my God. But anyway, so my parents said, don't open the door. It's well before cell phones. Don't open the door to anybody. We'll be back in an hour. This is what actually happened. And I'm a great believer that things happen the way they're supposed to. So my parents are driving down the Las Vegas Strip. They're at the corner of the Strip and Sahara. They're at the light, honking and beeping next to the car next to them. They look over. It's somebody from the little town in upstate New York that we came from. And they pull over.
New Yorkers would honk.
Yes, I know, yelling and screaming. That point. And so pulled over. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? And they went out to get a drink or coffee or whatever. And the guy said to my father, he said, "Why are you going to California? This is way to Mecca. You are a waiter. This is the place to be." A couple days later, my dad went to down to the Culinary Union, and they sent him out to the Old Sands Hotel as a waiter in the coffee shop, the Garden Room. By the time the Sands was imploded, my dad was the longest serving employee, and he'd been the maitre d' of the Copa Room for many, many years. So we made a life for ourselves in the middle of the desert, quite by serendipity. Weren't supposed to be here, weren't supposed to settle here, and here we are, 60 years later. It's meant to be. So that's how we ended up.
And you still have that sharp mind going on.
Yes, and I still have a New York accent, and I can't figure out how is that possible. I went to junior high school here, college here. Still have an accent.
I still have one too.
Maybe that's why I understand you so well.
All right, please continue with your bio.
Oh, I forgot. Oh, that's what I was doing. All right. I'm the granddaughter of immigrants to this country. For me, public service, which I love public service, is my way of giving something back to this country for having taken my family in. If we were not able to come to the United States, both sides of my family would have been exterminated in the Holocaust. My mother's side is from Salonika, Greece. Prior to World War II, half of the population of Salonika was Jewish, about 80,000 people. By the time the Nazis finished, 1,000 Jews were left. The only way that happened is that their Greek neighbors and friends hid them at great peril to themselves. Right. My father's side of the family, and how ironic is this, are from exactly where they're fighting now, by the Ukrainian-Russian border. And in those days, as you know, those borders, you never knew one day to the next what side you were on. But that's where my father's side of the family is from. Millions of Jews, millions of people were killed. And again, I never thought that without the United States, had we stayed there, never would have survived. I wouldn't be sitting here. There'd be an empty chair where I'm sitting right now. And so for me, public service has a meaning. There's a reason for it. I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, I think I'll run for office. No, I believe that there's much to do. I believe I can be of assistance. I work hard. I do my job. I keep my head down, and I'm a good public servant because I have no ulterior motive for doing this. It's not especially now, this is not hardly a stepping stone. I mean, I've stepped, and now I'm stepping back to do pure public service. I have a vision for the city of Las Vegas. It's my hometown. I've had 4 generations of my family here now, and I know exactly where I would like to see Las Vegas a decade from now.
Well, tell us about all the public offices you held.
Okay. As I mentioned when you asked me about being old or young or whatever, I started in the Nevada State Assembly and loved serving in that office. And then I was on the University Board of Regents, which we all know in Nevada, unlike most states, is an elected position. And I worked very hard to keep tuition low. Why? Because I went to UNLV and my dad was a waiter and I was an Al Phillips, a cleaner girl. And I know how it doesn't sound like much if they raise tuition in those days from $12 to $14. It does. And so I was very sensitive to that. And also I made the motion to bring the law school to UNLV. And I'm very, very proud of that accomplishment also.
And you also found the money to bring the VA hospital.
Well, when I was in Congress, yes. And that I can say without fear of contradiction that is the best thing I ever did. And
a lot of people don't know that. You need to say that more.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, this is so tacky, but so true. I worked and I'm going to tell you how this started. When I first went to Congress, I created a bunch of advisory committees. One of them was the Veterans Advisory Committee. At the end of one of the meetings, a group of lady vets came over to me and they said, we need a mammogram. This is when the Adelaide Del Guy clinic on Martin Luther King, that was it. And they said, we need a mammogram because right now we go to the VA clinic. The doctor tells us we need a mammogram. We got to find transportation to go to the mammogram. Then we got to come back here, get it read. And it's just too difficult if we had a mammogram on property. So I thought, well, yeah. So we worked really hard to get a mammogram. It was great. I've got pictures of it where we cut the ribbon. It was a cute little pink machine. It was great. We're at the ribbon cutting and I'm giving a speech about, next, this is just the first. Next, we're going to get an MRI machine. Oh, everybody's clapping. Somebody comes over and taps me on the shoulder. Yeah. They said, you got to think bigger. I said, think bigger than an MRI machine? What's bigger? Take up half the clinic. They said, it's true. They said, you need a full service VA hospital here in Southern Nevada. And he said, you got 300,000 veterans. And if somebody is sick, they got to go to Long Beach. This is crazy. And so I sat down with my staff and I sat on the Veterans Affairs Committee at the time, and keep in mind—
For a while.
Yeah, for a while. But keep in mind, Steve, And this is just shows the difference of Congress now from when I was there. I got the funding for the VA under a Republican administration. George Bush II was the president, and it was a Republican Congress. And yet we were able to demonstrate that one of the greatest needs in the entire country was here in Southern Nevada, and we got the funding.
But when it comes to veterans, it should be nonpartisan.
Everything should be nonpartisan. This is ridiculous. And it was. And nowadays, I don't think in a million years that you could cross party lines to get something like that accomplished. And it was the first, we worked very hard. I worked very closely with then Secretary of the VA, Prince Sippy. We became very, very good friends. He was a Bush appointee. He came to Vegas. He toured all the properties. I just adored this man. And we ended up, one year we got all in the budget, the 2005 budget, we got the funding for the building plans and the excavation and all of this. The next year, in the 2006 budget, federal budget, that was the largest, the Veterans Hospital in North Las Vegas, in my congressional district, was the largest earmark in the entire federal budget.
I remember.
And that's, and we built it.
I remember. And then they got a Fisher House on property now.
I heard. I know. I go over there every now and then and see what's going on. And it's a beautiful campus. And there's so much more to do.
They're taking ambulance services now that they didn't take before. So,
yes. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, was it the emergency room? It wasn't built to have it was built to be more of you go in and you check and you've got issues from your time of service, but it has evolved into something so much more than that. I'm very proud of it. And I'll tell you something else, and this still ekes me a little bit. Since that incredible hospital, next time you drive over to 215 in Pecos to be at that hospital, think about this. That whole thing started with a mammogram machine that the lady veterans wanted. That is pretty cool to see where it was. What I asked for is, look, you don't name the hospital after me. There's other people far more worthy. You don't do this, you don't do that. But the Women's Health Center in the VA hospital, that I would like named, because that's where it all started. So I didn't randomly pick out the Women's Health Center. It was, this is how this incredible facility was created. Dean Heller, when he was senator, blocked it.
Well, he blocked a lot of things.
Well, apparently so. But
Alicia Cater, she blocked.
Yes, he did.
Federal bench.
Yes, he did.
So,
yes, I guess I'm in good company. But nonetheless, that was something that I was disappointed about. My staff worked really hard for
And we need a Braille Center here in Las Vegas.
We could use one.
Yeah, big time.
Yes, indeed.
So maybe that's something you probably want to think about when you...
I will.
You swear in.
There's a lot of, yes, God willing, yes. There's a lot of things. Steve, I think that the next 10 years are going to be the most explosive in the city of Las Vegas. Oh, yeah. It is going to be amazing. And I think we need somebody at the helm of the city that can guide us to the next level. Look, we're going to get the A's. That means another stadium, more construction, more workers coming into town to take advantage of the jobs. Things have not changed from when my parents rolled into town. Why do you go someplace? Jobs, where you can live, where you can make a living for your family. So anyway, after that, I think in a few years, we're going to get an NBA team.
I think we're going to get another congressional seat.
And I guess in due time. Well, we got to wait. It's every 10 years. So we got to wait for the census. Mm-hmm. But we're going to see explosive growth also. Why? Because there's going to be jobs. People are going to pour in for the jobs. When there's more jobs, then they need more housing. If there's more housing, there's going to be more businesses. And then they're going to demand better education for their kids and a better healthcare system. And honestly, this is something that we don't talk about often, a better state-of-the-art public transportation system. And we need it. It's time. So I think all of these things are going to take place in the next decade, and I'm very, very excited
They were
about it.
talking about the bullet train from LA to Vegas. So that's
They've been
one
talking
thing.
about that since I went to since I was in the Nevada State Legislature, and and Max is now 42 years old. So, and I'll tell you something else.
Maybe you could put some fire underneath them.
I plan to. The other thing that is I know that they're talking about another airport, but I got approval for the Ivanpah Airport when I was sitting on the Transportation Committee in the House of Representatives. So I knew this was an inevitability. That was the reason they wanted the designation, but that's finally going to come to fruition as well. So we are a world-class city, but let us, and we love our visitors. We need our tourists here. That's the very foundation of our economy, which is very strong. But like every other city, you're either growing or you're dying. And I would much rather be growing than dying. And that doesn't mean we won't have problems associated with growth. There's water issues, there's land issues. There's a lot of challenges ahead of us.
Amazon just bought $43 million worth of land by Boulder City.
That's a lot of land. It's inevitable. Yeah. It's inevitable. And Las Vegas is going to be in the middle of it. And I think it's also another thing I bring to the table, other than expertise in a number of these areas, is the fact that I have known everybody in town for so long. There isn't a person that I need to talk to that I can't call up and get through to immediately.
You already made those relationships.
And it's about time.
And look at you and me, what, 19 years?
Oh my God, I know.
We've known each other 19 years
yes,
now.
And we had an evolved relationship,
Yes,
which is really great, really great.
Yeah,
it's true. I love that. I love it. Look, I'm friendly with the city council in Henderson. Why? Because I was the head of Turo for 10 years, almost 10 years, 9.5 years. I'm very, very good friends with the city, with the county commissioners. North Las Vegas, I have a wonderful relationship with them. The state, I know the state legislature very well, obviously, very friendly with the constitutional offices, whether they're R's or D's. I have a good relationship with Joe Lombardo and with Stavros, as well as, of course, the Democratic members of of our government. And so what I think I bring to the table...
Don't forget D.C.
And, thank you for that. And of course, I mean, look, Dina Titus was a bridesmaid at my wedding. I mean, the women who tend to be running the the government right now, our federal government, they're all personal friends of mine. We should all be working together for the good of the people of the state of Nevada, and for us, for Southern Nevada. There's no reason why not. These silos are ridiculous. It doesn't do anybody any good. And I noticed with the city council, I mean, they need to start working together for the good of the entire community, not only who lives in their ward.
One thing I dislike is when a person runs the chair in Carson City, whatever chair you run, and you see a name on there and you don't like that person and you kill the bill. And it could be a good bill that betters Nevada, but you just don't like that person, you kill the bill. I cannot stand that.
No, we need to start working together and collaborating, because we've got a lot of work to do. And this silly, petty stuff. And again, maybe when I was younger, it served a purpose. But now that I have wiser, a little more, quite a bit more mature. I mean, you see things in a different way, and you see that there's a better way of achieving success. And I think certainly the American people are yearning for it, but the people here in Southern Nevada, I mean, why aren't they entitled to that?
Because we're so divided now.
Well, we tend to be. We tend to be.
When you were in Congress, what committees did you sit on?
Well, I started on the VA committee and the Transportation Committee and Small Business Committee. As I gained more seniority, I was given other committee assignments. By the time I left Congress, I was on the very powerful Ways and Means Committee, Healthcare Subcommittee, and the Social Security Subcommittee, and of course the Foreign Affairs Committee, which my passion lies in, and I was on the Middle East Subcommittee, which is, of course, that's why I'd like to pride myself on thinking I have a bit of expertise in that area. In addition, I was telling Jim before you got here, I've been to Israel 18 times, some as a private citizen, some as a congressional representative, and some as a member of organizations that were going there with groups of American citizens. So I know it well.
So let's shift gear a little bit. What's going on with Israel and Palestine?
It's a nightmare right now, obviously. And I'm probably initially not telling you anything you don't already know, because I know you follow current events very, very carefully. Look, on October 7th, in the middle of a Jewish holiday and right before Shabbat, where Israelis tend to be either at home with their families having dinner or out just celebrating the beginning of the weekend, there was a horrific, unprovoked terrorist attack emanating from the Gaza by Hamas. Now, I'm very careful this is a terrorist organization funded by Iran. It is an enemy of the United States that has taken over the Gaza, has suppressed the Palestinian people, provides them with relatively no services, and they somehow managed, and this is something that's going to have to be investigated by the Israelis, because that was a terrible failure of intelligence, and the Israelis are supposed to have the best intelligence in the world. Well, somebody sure messed up and didn't see this. They came in, as you know, through land, through sea, through air, and they just created havoc and carnage in the southern part of Israel.
You want to, sorry, Miss Berkley, but you want to know what upsets me is that nobody had weapons to defend themselves.
No.
And you think that a country that enlists everybody to serve in the military, that they're all well trained in weaponry, that they'll have a Second Amendment in that country, that somebody probably could have stopped a lot of the killing.
I don't think they could have. I mean, this was mass carnage. I mean, they were killing children. They were killing families. I think it would have taken more than that. It was overwhelming, well planned, and I believe with all my heart that this was Hamas, Iran's, and you know, Iran and the Saudis are on separate sides of the table. The Iranians did not want the Saudis making a deal and becoming a part of the Abraham Accords with other Arab nations, because let's face it, the Saudis are the big ones. And they had been working very diligently with the Israelis. They've had security relations for quite a while, but this would have normalized relations in some fashion. And the irony of all of this is there was a component of the Abraham Accords, particularly if the Saudis would sign on, that would work towards a Palestinian state, which is what the Palestinians say they want. Now, it would be very helpful if the Palestinians actually recognize Israel's right to exist. And when I listen to people saying, well, we got to make peace, we got to have a ceasefire, Israel has got to get this terrorist organization out from its southern border. Because if this happened once, you can bet the farm it's going to happen again. So they have to clean out that cesspool. What is the problem? The problem is Hamas now has 200 hostages, And there's 2 million people, innocent people, that if the Israelis go in with the firepower that they know they must in order to eradicate Hamas, people are going to get hurt. And it's going to inflame the Arab street, as we have seen. What I find ironic is, why are they condemning Israel? Israel would like to give relief to the Palestinian people by getting rid of this terrorist oppressor that is killing the Palestinian people and using them as shields against the Israelis. How preposterous not to be siding with the Israelis to get rid of this cesspool, this den of terrorists being funded by Iran, and actually give the Palestinians an opportunity to live in relative peace. And that is a shame. However, it would help if they did recognize Israel's right to exist. When people say, let's negotiate for peace, let's have a ceasefire, who should the Israelis negotiate with? A terrorist organization whose tenets are to destroy the state of Israel? They're not equivocating on that. That is the mission of Hamas. They want to destroy Israel. Well, what do you sit down and negotiate with them? You can live for 10 more years. You could exist for 20 more years until they are recognized as a right to exist, as an independent state. Then the Israelis will always be vulnerable to any of these terrorist organizations. And how much longer do they have to live like this? And again, I have tremendous sympathy for innocent people that are caught up and in the line of fire. And that is most unfortunate. But perhaps if people work, the entire world, including the Arab street, worked with Israel to get rid of this terrorist organization, then Israel will be better, the Palestinians will be better off, and the entire Arab world will be better off. And the whole world will be a whole lot dangerous than it is at this moment.
Because this goes on, every 10 years now?
It goes on whenever they feel like creating a terrorist attack.
I'm just tired of hearing about the Band-Aid effect, They're going to have to do major surgery.
And that's exactly right. But again, is that at a risk of innocent hostages? I don't know. And look, even the American people, and there's a pretty broad support for the state of Israel and helping Israel right now. But you see a whole lot of tortured and dead hostages, and you're going to see a big change in this country too. And I understand it, because this is not the first time it has happened. It is a truly tragic situation. And look at the Israelis. I mean, their economy could not be stronger. It is not only a vibrant economy, but the quality and standard of life of the Israelis, who just 70 years ago were all living on kibbutzes and farming just in order to have food to eat. Look what they've managed to create in the middle of the desert. At the same time, the Palestinians are stagnant and obviously and understandably frustrated and angry. But if they united with the Israelis instead of Hamas, I guarantee their lives would improve dramatically. And again, I was telling Jim this before before we started. I was part of a congressional delegation that we were the last civilians to leave the Gaza when the Israeli military forcibly removed the remaining settlers. They said, we're giving this, we cannot defend 7,000 settlers, Israeli settlers, against 2 million Palestinians. So Israel made a decision under Ariel Sharon, the most hawkish general and prime minister in the history of Israel. We're getting out. We're leaving the Gaza to the Palestinians.
How big is the Gaza Strip anyway?
Oh my God. Israel is this big, and the Gaza is even smaller than that. I mean, it's just like a little border.
It's not a tourist destination, right?
But it could be. Imagine, if I could say this, and I mean no disrespect to anybody, can you imagine 2 million Israelis in the Gaza, where they have all of this extraordinary oceanfront property? I guarantee.
That is oceanfront property.
It is, and beautiful beach property. That would be the greatest tourist destination on the planet right now if it was handled nicely. But I happen to know for an absolute fact, because I saw it with my own eyes, when the Israelis pulled out, they left all the greenhouses, they left their places of business, they left their settlements for the hope that it would kickstart an economy for the Palestinians. Know what happened? All of it was dismantled. And when you say greenhouses, you shrug. What are flowers? Israel, it provides all of the wintertime flowers for Europe, because they can't obviously grow flowers in Europe in the winter. They can in Israel. And that's where the Europeans get their beautiful flowers in the wintertime that all could have been controlled by the Palestinians. Instead, they dismantled it. How sad, how pathetically sad that is.
What did you think about President Joe Biden's visit and his speech?
I thought, you and I may differ on this. I thought the visit was great. I'm glad he went. And from what I understand, the Israeli people were thrilled with his clarity, his moral clarity. He spoke exactly what the United States was going to do. And I thought his speech was pitch perfect. Now, there also is, let me just say this because it's part of it. A problem right now, and I was a big fan of Bibi Netanyahu's for decades. I am not now. This thing with the judiciary was a needless, self-inflicted cut. You had hundreds of thousands of Israelis out on the streets protesting, and maybe that's when the Israelis let their guard down and started thinking that, they truly were in control. With the Israelis in that part of the world, a very dangerous part of the world, they have to live day by day and always be aware that their security may depend on one false move. And I think they sure made a false move.
What I wanted to say,
what were you going to say?
Ms. Berkley, usually when the president comes off Air Force One, you see two Marines, one on each side. And I didn't see that in Israel. I saw it looked like two Secret Service.
That may very well be.
What happened to the Marines? Do you know?
That I do not know. Although, we do not have American forces in Israel. Israel takes care of Israel. We give, obviously, Iron Dome we paid for. Obviously, there's a lot of foreign aid. But 80% of the foreign aid we give Israel comes back because they purchase American weapons, purchase American goods. So it's a pretty good bargain for the United States of America as well.
What did you think about the president's speech?
I liked it. I thought look, right now, from what I understand from people that I know there, and I don't have family there.
In Israel.
In Israel. But from what I understand from people that do have family, it was a welcome speech that hit the right tone at a very, very difficult time in the history of the Israeli nation. As they have said, and you've heard this, and I'm just repeating it, but this was the most horrific loss of Jewish life since the Holocaust. And I thought we were long past that. I think this was a wake-up call and a very sad one for Israelis and Jews across the planet. I know, my own temple, we did our rally for Israel at Temple Beshalom. Place was packed, but people felt the need to be there, the need to be with their loved ones and to talk about Israel and its meaning to them. So whatever he said may not have satisfied you, may not have satisfied me entirely or others, but it hit the right tone for that moment in Israel.
I wanted him to concentrate on just Israel, but when he brought up Ukraine, it kind of threw me off.
Well, I'm a big proponent of funding Ukraine, too. I think that Vladimir Putin is a despicable human being who had no business going into another country. Ukraine is not Russia. And he has been very open. You got to give him credit for that. He's very open that he wants to reconstitute the Soviet Union. That is not good for the United States of America.
He was head of KGB.
Sir, and so yes, he was. He is a nasty piece of work. I mean, there's no attribute. I know George Bush II looked into his eyes and knew he was someone he could do business with. I don't know what maybe he was looking at someone else's eyes, but no, big mistake. But look, that is another, not like Israel with 5,000 years of history, but the Ukraine has a very long and bloody history as well. Remember when Stalin was the head of the
USSR.
Soviet Union, USSR, 25 million Ukrainians were starved to death by this man. Again, luckily my family was here in the United States, but by the time they got here, I guarantee they were not in very good shape.
Yeah, because, well, I was reading something that Kyiv, years and years and years ago, actually used to be the capital of the Soviet Union before they moved it to Moscow.
Oh, that may very well be.
So he's trying to reconstitute it. Yeah.
Without a question of a doubt.
Because I honestly think he's sick. Well, mentally, obviously. But I also think he's physically ailing, and I think that he wants to leave a legacy.
Why do you think that?
Well, that's just rumors I've heard. I have no factual data to back that up.
I think he is either it's mentally, physically, or both, but this is one sick puppy. And I mean, what he is doing, I mean, I'm amazed that the Ukrainian people lasted this long. And look, what is to stop if he is successful, Putin is successful in the Ukraine? You don't think he's got his eye on Poland? He's not going
to stop at one.
No, he's already subjugated Belarus. I mean, you could go Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. You can go right across Eastern Europe. Do we want to wait as the United States of America until we have no other option but going in ourselves? They're doing our fighting for us. Israel is doing fighting for us. Neither one is asking for our boots on the ground. They're asking for help so they can survive.
So I got this is a question I wanted to ask you today. So remember the whole fiasco with getting to elect a new Speaker of the House?
Oh, you mean the ongoing fiasco?
Right, I know. So
it's hard not to remember.
Right. So what exactly is Congress's role and what's going on?
You can't pass anything. You can't pass funding. You can't pass a resolution for support. You can do absolutely no business in the United States Congress without an elected speaker. And the speaker comes from the majority party. Now, the Republicans only have a 5-vote majority, as we know,
right,
but it could be a 1-vote majority. They're in charge. And so all of this disarray is on the Republican side. They got to get their act together because the world is in jeopardy right now and everyone is looking to the United States for guidance. We can't even elect a speaker. This is the most preposterous and embarrassing, I might say, preposterous thing.
If you were there, they probably would elect you as speaker.
That would not happen, but it was never a hope of mine. I've had
to be speaker.
Yeah, I've had aspirations of things in my life. Being Speaker of the United States House of Representatives was not one of it. 7 terms. Yeah.
Do you think there should be term limits on Congress and Senate?
I think term limits are inherently bad. I mean, it takes away Americans' voice in who they're going to elect. You don't like someone? You don't think they're doing a good job? Don't vote for them.
But don't you think that whoever is the incumbent already have the groundwork already done, know who to go to, already they're already up in the fray, know who to call. They already have the groundwork, and somebody coming in that's new don't necessarily.
But the United States Congress has turned over quite a bit lately. I mean, even look at our history. I was there, then Dina was there, and then Joe Hecht was there. So we have a lot of movement.
John Ensign.
John Porter.
John
Porter was there. I mean, Gibbons. Oh, really? How's John doing?
He's
I like
doing
John
good.
a lot.
He's doing
Yeah,
good.
I think he's a very happy man.
He's doing really good.
Yes, he
He's got a
is.
nice,
Nice thing going.
nice attorney office,
Yeah.
and he's doing good.
Yeah, no, very good.
Do
I'm
do
glad for
you
him.
do Miss Berkley? Do you know anybody in the IDF?
Serving now, yes, but not. And I'll give you some name without giving names. I'll tell you afterwards because they didn't authorize me. There is somebody we talked about it. A prominent person here in Las Vegas whose daughter made Aliyah and is engaged to an Israeli.
Made Aliyah, what's that?
Became a dual citizen, is
Okay.
immigrating to Israel to live. Her fiance is in the IDF. She and the fiance were visiting his parents in Florida when the massacre occurred, and it took him several days to be able to get back to his unit. But the first thing, I mean, once that happened, that was his mission. He needed to get back to his unit. And so that's one. There's another family that I won't name in here that this is a horrible story. They had a teenage son that was off the kibbutz. And the mother, when the attack occurred, the mother called him and said, "Do not come home, hide." And he was hidden. When he came back home after the massacre, his whole family had been massacred.
Okay.
So it was that phone call from his mom and the neighbor that hid him in the safe house that kept this young man alive.
That's
Teenager.
crazy. You live there and you have to have a safe house in your
That's
house.
what I was thinking
And
too.
they all do. If they're up on the border, they all do. Same thing on the northern border with Hezbollah. I mean,
Just give everybody a Tommy gun and they'll be fine.
they all, the Israelis know how to handle weapons there. And they, look, everybody, many times when I'm in Israel, if we're touring, we're on a bus on Shabbat, because everybody that's reserves or are serving in the IDF, they all go home on the weekend. And so they're serving. And then, so you see them on the roads heading back to their homes. And so we'd pick up, the members of the IDF. And you look at them, you know what it's like to serve. They're 18, 19-year-old kids.
A lot of Americans are in the IDF, by the way.
They have to have dual citizenship, yes. But here, so they have their guns, they have everything. They're still in uniform. They're going home for Shabbat. They're going home to have dinner with their parents. I mean, it's truly a citizens' military, and they all have a responsibility for security of that country.
Help me with this thinking process. You have terrorist group that came in from the Gaza Strip that live with Palestinians, crossed over into Israel, massacred people, unarmed,
Yes.
Behead children in their cribs,
Yes, they did.
burn and rape women, and then you have Palestinians in this country who doesn't even mention that.
I know.
And talk about the hospital being bombed, which Hamas is the one that bombed it.
Islamic Jihad, actually.
And these people,
Yeah.
Miss Berkley,
Yes.
these people are in Congress.
Yeah. Yes.
What do you think about that squad?
I think that I am appalled.
Are they Americans?
I am absolutely appalled. And I think there should be a censure and a resolution to remove whoever would say the things that they were saying and attacking and screaming at Biden and they're going to get him. What type of people are these? And what type of example are they setting for the rest of the American public? Shame on them. No excuse, nothing for what that one woman in particular said out loud, and that I'm sure others are thinking. And what amazes me is I heard an interview, and I have some of my closest friends in this town are not only Muslim, but are Palestinian and Arab we're very close. When I listened to an interview, and it's a Palestinian woman, and they are showing her evidence. She's out protesting about the Israelis, they're murderers, they're killing our children, they bombed the hospital, and then they are shown videos. They hear video, they hear audio about talking about the misfire. It's absolute ironclad evidence that the Israelis did not do this. They don't care. And the commentator said, well, if you absolutely knew, would it change your mind? No. They would rather blame a democratic state of Israel who longs for peace with the Palestinians than a terrorist organization like Hamas that is funded by Iran. That's who they believe. That's who they trust. That is outrageous to me.
If I was a multimillionaire, I would go into those states and get rid of all 4 of those people that they call the squad.
Well, then I
would
wish you
remove
were.
them all from. I would remove them all from office. I'd rather put Mickey Mouse in there and Donald Duck before I put an American hater.
Yeah, and I think they do a tremendous disservice to
because they split the
our country. It's a very bad thing. But there are other members of Congress too I would like to remove that I don't think are doing a service to our nation, and that's the truth.
And who's that?
Matt Gaetz.
Okay.
Now, he may have disliked Kevin McCarthy, and I'm not a big fan, but how do you do that and remove a speaker, leave our country paralyzed with no replacement? That was very, very reckless.
I always tell people, if you come to me with a problem, you better have a solution.
Well, I wish you would have spoken to Matt Gaetz about that, because he is doing this country and so many others around the planet a tremendous disservice, leaving us vulnerable. And the fact of the matter is, and I believe this with all my heart, the United States is the one indispensable country in the world.
All right, since you've been in Congress 7 terms.
Yes.
Let me ask you this question. And I see what's going on with the world, and I think that this president is being tested, and this is the reason why. You had 2 Chinese weather balloons that came over here. Okay, I don't know how they make it all the way from China all the way over here, and we didn't see it until it got here. But anyways, it sounds like the Pearl Harbor with all the squadron came across the Pacific, and nobody knew until they got here.
No one heard the noise.
Okay, so you got that. You got the Russian and the Chinese war games off of the coast of Alaska.
Very dangerous.
Okay, and you got China that said they want to take over Taiwan.
Yes.
They want it.
I don't know whether you know this, but I chaired the Taiwan caucus when I was in Congress. So I've been to Taiwan a few times, and it's just a remarkable place. 9th strongest economy in the country.
I haven't
just
been. I should go before. Should be on my bucket list. Jen, we should just go.
It really is amazing. Amazing.
And then you have Russia invading Ukraine.
Yes.
And now you have Hamas coming into Israel.
And Hezbollah threatening.
And then you got Iran funding these terrorist organizations. What's going on with the world? Are we heading into World War III here?
Well, that was another thing Jim and I were talking about. Look, this is a very dangerous time. It'll take a very steady hand. We're not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, a flashpoint in the Middle East could start a big war. If we don't help the Ukrainians, and they are overrun by the Russians, you better believe that is the start of a very dark era for the world, particularly Europe, but ultimately the United States. There are many very dangerous things happening right now. Let us keep a clear mind, know what our objectives are, know what our goals are as the United States of America, and move forward deliberately and a little cautiously. We don't want to ignite World War III.
Were you part of Homeland Security when you were in
I
Congress?
did not serve on Homeland Security, no.
And if you were mayor and something goes on here in the city of Las Vegas, what would you do?
Well, it depends on what it was. Obviously, look, I think I'll give you an example of what was perhaps not proactive, but certainly a response after October 1. And, that was, again, a senseless loss of life for people that were enjoying a concert and a lunatic starts shooting at them. I mean, for no reason. I mean, there's no established reason. There was nobody there he didn't like. Just, what the heck?
You couldn't even see him from the distance he
Just
was.
absolute carnage. As you know, I'm sure, that you cannot have medical personnel during an active shooting situation. So it is up to our first responders, if they come across somebody that is wounded but can be saved, and they can do it quickly and train to a tourniquet, to stop the bleed, whatever it is, they need to be trained to do that. After October 1, I was reading in the news, and this is the way I think. I was reading in the newspaper. I always have my coffee in the morning and read the paper. The Engelstad Foundation had donated $8 million to Metro to create the training center for everything, including medical. And I remember reading it thinking, well, they don't need to do that. Turo can do that. We have a disaster training program, very small. I called up Metro, talked to Kevin McMahill, who was under sheriff. I'd worked with him when I was in Congress. I said, Kevin, will you come to Turo? I'd like to show you our disaster training program. Brought him over. Then I called Engelstad. I said, would you be willing? I said, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. Turo can do this. And so we are at this point, Engelstad funded it. Turo, we have all of our training mannequins, everything that we need. We also give every Metro officer a life-saving kit that they wear on their belt every day. And we worked with Metro to create a world-class medical training program. We have now trained 3 of the 4,000 Metro officers. And this year we will complete, I'm no longer with Turo, but we will be able to do that. Now, what is that? Did I foresee the carnage? No. But was I able to figure out how can we make God forbid there is a next time, how can I protect the lives of my fellow citizens? What can we do? That was my way of helping. But I've been through a lot, Steve. I mean, nothing ruffles me anymore. If God forbid anything happened, I feel very comfortable that I would be very clear-headed and very methodical in keeping the people of Southern Nevada as protected as humanly possible, and that once whatever crisis it was over and hopefully successful and with no loss of life or very limited, then we pick ourselves up, wipe ourselves off, and move and continue moving forward. Because there's only one way to move. You either move forward or you don't. And we're a moving forward city. That's why we all live here. We can complain. We're all of a bitch, piss, spit, moan about so many things. But in the end, where else would you rather be living?
Vegas.
Me too.
And that's the quality we should have in the mayor.
Thank
Somebody
you.
that's level-headed and that could think under extreme conditions.
And
that's a Marine.
Yeah, right. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Guys, you have kept me here longer than you promised.
Could you, do you speak Hebrew?
No.
Okay.
No.
I
didn't grow up it would have been Yiddish if not Hebrew, because that was, the semi-dead language until the Israelis resurrected it. But my mother's side of the family, because they're Sephardic, they're, from the Mediterranean, they spoke Ladino, which is it's a mix of Spanish and Yiddish and anything else that they could throw in. So my mother's side of the family spoke a very odd language that only 3 people in the world speak. That was Ladino. My father's side of the family spoke Yiddish and Russian, of course, because they were Russians.
I haven't heard that term Giddish in a long time.
Yes, Yiddish, yes.
So,
Yes.
so Ms. Berkley, is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to cover?
No, I thank you very much. I enjoyed the discussion. I enjoyed the questions. And I thank you for raising everybody's interest in the community on this very, very important topic. I wish it was going to be over tomorrow. It's not. And thank you for sensitizing people to
Thank
the
you for
true
coming on and
challenges.
explaining.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Jim, you have anything else for Ms. Berkley?
No, I'm good.
Thank you.
Well, Ms. Berkley, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Jim, as always, you look better this week.
A little more refreshed.
There you
I'm
go.
a little worried. What was wrong last week?
I had just gotten off the plane.
He's exhausted.
Oh, okay.
I just got basically kind of like what you did for us, flying from Washington
Every
D.C.
week.
to come back for our first annual Veterans Politics Valentine's
I
Day
didn't
ball.
realize I was as exhausted as I was because I came home every weekend for 14 years until I didn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like clear. My head stopped fogging. Oh, guys! Oh my God! I could hear so much better. I could see so much better. But yeah, that travel is a killer.
Well, Ms. Berkley, Mark is going to zoom in on you, and you have the final word, whatever you want to say,
All right.
and your point
Great.
of contact, please.
Great. Well, Mark, thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure. And thank you for helping to educate our fellow citizens on issues that other people might not be talking about. And I'm Shelley Berkley, candidate for mayor. And you should go on my website if you would like more information. Berkley4mayor.com. And I invite you to join the Berkley Brigade.
Thank you. Folks, that's Shelley Berkley, former United States Congresswoman who did 7 terms, candidate for Las Vegas mayor. And she's very, very knowledgeable, very educated, level-headed person, somebody that could easily jump right in as mayor and run this city the best that she knows how to do and keep everybody calm and safe. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. Until next time.